Welcome to 52 Friends. Today I'm here with Rebecca, who's also known as Yenta. She's a matchmaker who's going to answer some of our dating questions.
Thank you, Miriam. As you just heard, I am Yenta. I do matchmaking for the Jewish community of the Greater Toronto Area. I work with ages early 20s to early 40s, trying to bring nice Jewish people together. It doesn't matter what their sexual orientation or their observance level. I'm committed to bringing nice Jewish people together.
I wanted to have you here because I think that dating can be so lonely. And so that's where I think that matchmaking comes in and is so great. So I wanted to tell you more about your business and about what you do. So what made you decide to get into matchmaking in the first place?
So for me, the reason why I decided to do matchmaking, and specifically Jewish matchmaking, there were a few, reasons behind my decision to pull the trigger on this. For one thing, my name Yenta comes by very organically. I tend to know a lot of people, and before I actually decided to launch this, a lot of people approached me asking me if I knew single people, and the answer was yes, but two people being single is not enough to encourage people to go out with one another. Like, in theory, that's lovely, but that's not the basis for a long-lasting relationship. So that was one piece. And then the other, specifically for Jewish matchmaking, especially, October 7th, I think, shifted a lot of people's thinking and priority as far as what they were looking for out of a partner. For me, it was always very important to find a Jewish partner for myself. And I think, people, especially if they were kind of more secular prior to that, very upsetting, moment in time, I think they really thought about wanting to be with somebody that really understood them and their culture and wasn't going to put them in danger in any ways. Because I know I've heard some scary stories about the apps and how there's just rampant anti-Semitism through that. So I really wanted to create something where, people were looking for like-minded partners. And I know that matchmaking is very much prominent within more Orthodox circles, which is wonderful. I think it very much serves a purpose, but I think outside of those circles, there are lots of other young Jews that are looking for partnership and love, romance, all those good things. So I figured there needs to be something like it for the Greater Toronto Jewish community. So here we are.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure in general in our 20s and into our 30s to find a partner. How do you navigate that pressure?
For sure. And I know I've experienced it myself as a woman. I think we always kind of feel a pressure, especially if we want children, from our relatives, from our friends, from society, to get married as soon as you can so you can push those babies out. So to all the women out there that are stressed out, I say, take a breath. We are lucky that science is the best it's ever been, and it will only continue to get better as far as, our years of having healthy, safe pregnancies. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, you don't want to jump the gun and find somebody to create children with just for the sake of saying, okay, well, I did it. Bringing children into the world is no small task. It's no small feat. You really want to ensure that whoever you are doing that with is going to be a partner in all sense of the words. Just to have somebody, have a good time one time and then never see you again for you to raise the children is not really what you're looking for. Raising a child, they say it takes a village, and they're not wrong. So you really want to make sure you are finding the right person to do that with. So I would say to, women that are feeling that pressure, I get it, I can relate to it, but it's so important that you are finding the person that you actually want to raise your children with.
And as you match people, what do you think are the most common complaints that you hear?
That's a good one. I would say everybody that I chat with when I do my intake calls, I actually do talk with them about pain points that they've experienced in the dating world. So that's kind of one of my goals, is to eliminate those as best I can. So I know ghosting is a very common one. I experienced it myself. It's not nice. And I think it's become all too commonplace because everybody does it. So it's like, okay, I can too, which is really not the right attitude, because it's disrespectful. And I know that people feel awkward around rejection, certainly being the ones to give the rejection. And it's obviously not nice to receive it either, but it allows for people to, have that closure and move on. So I think that's a big one. And then two, like I think there is just some lack of etiquette on dates sometimes. Like I hear a big one from some ladies about how, you know, they'll go on a date with a gentleman and they'll come back and we'll do a debrief afterwards and they'll say that, you know, they couldn't get a word in edgewise. And I'll talk to the guy. I had a great time. And it's because he talked about himself the whole time. And it's like the conversation has to be balanced in order for both parties to get to know each other instead of it being like a podcast where one person's asking the questions and the other one is answering them. You want that back and forth. You want that banter. So I know that's also a common thing that I hear a lot.
So if you are on a date with someone who's talking a lot, how do you navigate that? Because they could just be nervous.
Yep.
That it's a first date.
Right.
So do you give them the second date knowing that they might have been nervous, or do you just kind of scratch that person off the list?
So my personal rule of thumb with respect to first and second dates, if somebody did something on the first date that is unforgivable, like they lost their temper at something that they really shouldn't have, or they were very rude to the waitstaff, those are red flags that I wouldn't advise that you look past, because if they're showing you that so early on, it's likely that they are, in theory, putting their best foot forward on the date, and that's their best first impression, so it's likely not going to improve. So that's a reason not to go out with a second time. But I think as far as like somebody being nervous, I think that a second date is warranted. I think that people do come out of their shell more, especially if they tend to be shyer or if they, you know, have like verbal diarrhea because they are so nervous, whatever it is. I think those are reasons that, you know, you should give it a second chance. But again, like if, you know, they did things that were like glaring issues on that first date, or if there was like truly zero physical attraction, I don't advocate for a second date in that circumstance.
Okay. I think that social media plays such a big role in who we go out with. Even myself, I find myself like looking through someone's social media before I go on a date with them or after I go on the date. Should I be doing that? And should I be making judgments based on that?
I think it's very easy for people to fall into that trap. And I think there is something to it about, you know, a person's social media presence. I don't think that it's a bad idea to do it, because you might learn things that are important for you to know. Like if, let's say, a guy is following Andrew Tate on social media, for me that would be a huge red flag, and I would not want to be pursuing that person. So those types of things could be very insightful and fine. That might lead you to find out things that are important for you to know, so you don't waste your time. But I think, you know, I've also heard of women, you know, I present them a profile and then they go on LinkedIn and they're like, oh, I don't love, you know, what he's doing for work, or it doesn't look like he's grown much in his career. And I think that's not super fair, because one, people might not be super active on their LinkedIn account and might not be updating as time goes on. So I don't think that's a fair judgment. And then again, like you're not even getting to ask the person the questions about like what their goals are. Like you don't really know what's happening on the back end. And if somebody isn't a frequent poster on LinkedIn, then like, you know, you're not going to learn a lot. I mean, you'll make assumptions that could be false. But I think as far as, you know, people's follower lists and who they follow on like Instagram, sometimes you can kind of gain some insight as to who that person is. But I would be cautious about that.
So I assume that you only set up people one at a time?
Yes.
How many people should we be talking to?
That is very much kind of in line with my philosophy that I like to do one match at a time, because I think it is fairest to both parties. I'm sure many of us have been in scenarios where we are talking to somebody and we feel it's going great, and then out of nowhere, the person is like, hey, I've actually, you know, really hit it off with somebody else, so I'm ending this. And it's frustrating, and it's not super respectful of our time. So that is, I guess, part of the reason why I encourage one match at a time, so that both parties can come to the conclusion whether or not they do want to continue pursuing each other, or if it really isn't a fit, so we don't get into scenarios like that.
What's your best non-cliche dating advice?
I would say best non-cliche dating advice while you are, I guess, further into dating beyond the first date, and especially if you want to have children, I think a really good kind of question to ask yourself is if you had a child that was like the person sitting across from you at the table, if you would be proud of that person, like to claim them as your own. And I'm not talking so much about what they do, with their career, more so their character. Would you be proud that you raised somebody that, exemplifies these types of traits? If the answer is no, then that's a pretty good indication of not continuing to pursue that, because if you do want children, and that's a person you're going to have children with, they're going to emulate both of you in some way. So you want to make sure, again, that it's, a person with character traits that you're looking for.
I feel like people today often take a really long time to get into an exclusive relationship, that it takes like weeks, months. How do you know when it's time to just call it and be with one person?
Very fair. I think there is something to be said about the way the apps have kind of warped our way of approaching dating. I think because it appears that there is so much choice that people are afraid to make that commitment to one person. So I get that. Again, like once upon a time I was on the app, so like I know what they're all about. I get what it's like, and you think, that next swipe, that might be the one. But again, I think it's really important to like really assess the person that you are going out with, so you can determine like if this is somebody you want to continue pursuing or not. And I don't think you need to be waiting, several months into things to say, I would like to be with you. Like, let's make sure we're not talking to other people. Like, let's see where this goes. And I don't think you can say that after one date. I think it's fair to give it a few dates. But I think probably by like date number 5, if you haven't already kind of concluded that, I think you're probably going to be running into some hurdles, and you really kind of need to look inward and assess if you're having some phobia around commitment, because I know that is a common theme for people.
So there's often this misconception that when you go to a matchmaker, you're desperate, or that you've reached your like kind of last resort. I don't think that's true at all. My parents actually met through one. I know a lot of people who have really successful relationships who met through matchmakers. How do you feel about that?
I love this question. I think to the people that say that, I first of all, don't think that's true at all. If anything, people are desperate to have better dating experiences, because I know that the apps are challenging at the best of times. And the other thing too is like part of why people come to a matchmaker in the first place is they are, aware of what it is that they're looking for, and they're tired of doing all these vetting processes themselves. And people are not upfront about what they're looking for on the apps. Like they might say that they're looking for a relationship, and then, you're a few dates in and I'm looking for something casual. That is exasperating. It is so frustrating because your time is valuable. It doesn't matter how old you are, your time is valuable. That is your greatest asset. You do not want to be wasting it on somebody that is not on the same page as you. Like, sure, you went out for a drink to a new bar, great. No, like let's be really intentional about the way we are using our time, because if somebody is not upfront about what they're looking for, like that's crap. I don't like it. 2 thumbs down for me. And then the other thing too is like, I know in my current, business model, I am not charging more than some of the apps are charging. And that's also part of why I'm offering it the way that I am. I'm not looking to deter people from using my services. I'm trying to get as many people as I can in my pool so that it is enticing and that they have some investment in the process as well, instead of, give me $5,000 and I'll never talk to you again. That's not the point of this at all. Like I say to my clients, like I want it to be a positive experience for people. And, I know that the apps can be so crappy, and to just weed through all the subpar individuals that are out there is not a good use of your time. So I don't think that it's desperate at all. I actually think it's like a very smart strategic move on people's behalfs when they are looking for something meaningful and serious. So kudos to everybody who I have worked with thus far.
How do you deal with people that say, I'm looking for marriage or I'm looking for kids, but then don't behave like they are?
That is a great question. There are definitely people where they say one thing and they mean another. I have no problem confronting them and saying, what's up with that? Like, this isn't reflecting well. You know, I don't want to be putting anybody out on a date with somebody that isn't serious or intentional. So I think if people are acting immaturely and not really, you know, doing as they say, I think they really need to be looking inward and doing some introspection about what they really want, and if they're really ready. Because it's one thing to say you want something, but it's another thing to actually be ready for those things.
Is there anything else you wanted to tell us? Anything about the dating world that you think people should know?
I do want to give a shout out to the ladies that are height snobs. I can appreciate that we want to date people that are taller from like an evolutionary standpoint. Like, it signals protection and all these things. However, I will say that my older sister, who is 5'8", for all her life thought she was going to be with somebody taller. And like, she's an objectively tall woman, especially for a Jewish woman.
Yeah.
And then she ended up marrying a guy that's, you know, 5'6", and, you know, she's got a very beautiful life. She's got a beautiful little girl. So don't cut yourself off to the short kings, ladies. You know, they are out there, and if they're good guys, give them a chance. I understand not wanting to tower your partners, but I think when women are objectively short and they tell me they want somebody a foot taller than them, I kind of laugh to myself a little, because I think it's like so unnecessary. It just, height does not tell you anything about a person's character, and I completely understand wanting to be physically attracted to a partner. I always advocate for that to people, but if we are going to be counting somebody out based on height alone, I think that is short-sighted.
How do you feel about approaching people in public?
If you have the confidence to do it, go for it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, like, kudos to you if you have the confidence to do it. Not everybody does. I would say a lot of people don't. As long as you're respectful about it, like, why not?
How do you feel about women making the first move?
As a woman that is with a woman, the rules kind of go out the window in that sense. So, I mean, it's also like 2026, it's modern days, so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But it's funny, I've definitely spoken to a lot of ladies that are looking for men to lead and take charge. So I guess it really depends on the type of dynamic that you want to have in your own relationship. I am totally pro, like, women making the first move if they are, you know, feeling confident about it. Like, go for it. Like, if you are having a hard time demonstrating interest otherwise, that's a very clear way to show it. But I guess it depends on the guy too, right? Like, if he's going to be uncomfortable with that, then maybe that's not your guy in the first place. But I think men that are confident in their own masculinity might find it sexy. So go for it.
How do you feel? Okay, this is my last question.
Yes.
How do you feel about the anxious and avoidant stuff? There's so much conversation around that.
Yes.
And I feel like sometimes I can be a bit anxious. And so when I'm with someone who takes like hours or days to get back to me, I just can't. And I can't talk to them anymore.
Right. No, I think with the way we are with respect to our phones, it is odd for a person to take more than a day to respond to a text message. Like, unless somebody is working in like a remote spot and like none of it, I don't think there's a super valid reason not to be responding right away. And it certainly doesn't make a person feel wanted if the response is so far after they've been texted. So I completely understand why a person would be concerned with a really, really big delay. I think some people have super busy work days, and I think that's totally valid. And if they're trying to separate, their work life from there are social things external to work. Like, I respect it. I wish I could be a little more staunch in that myself. But I think, if it's after the workday and, the whole evening has passed and you haven't gotten a response, like I do think that is fair to, have some questions around that. Because like I said, like we all have smartphones. We are all very connected. And it's not to say that people should be responding within, 30 seconds of the message that's being sent out. I think we need to have some realisticness about it. But I do think it's kind of like a lame response for a person to be like, oh, sorry, like I didn't check my messages all day. Like, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
If that's what you're selling, you've lost me as a customer.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It was so nice talking to you. And hopefully you get lots of new singles as a result.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And thanks so much for having me.